Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
Well, hello, John. I'm going to do something that if it's okay with you, because normally our podcast it's a conversation between us.
Yes.
I want to direct a comment directly to our listeners, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, take it away.
All right. Dear listeners, if you were worried, and I understand if you were, that the movie we'll be talking about today does not start with 8 minutes of mummified children, put your doubts and fears at ease, because it does.
Yeah, I had forgotten that. I'd forgotten that detail. I have seen this movie before, but that did not. It's been a few years since I've seen this thing, though.
Yeah, it actually has been for me too. Real mummies, and they do actually progress in age.
Which is,
I love behind the scenes story of Werner Herzog. He went to the museum where these things are, and he was like, "I'm taking them out of the glass boxes and arranging them how I like." He used them as props. He's like, put all the children here, then adults.
Yeah, but also this museum where they are is in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the setting or anything of this movie.
Nope. He had seen those, and he was like, creepy. That's creepy as fuck, and I want to start this movie with mummies.
Yeah. For a movie that's about a vampire.
Yep.
I want to start with mummies to start my vampire movie. It's
still creepy, though.
It is creepy, man, and this movie's
all about that.
This whole movie is creepy. This is just creepy film. I think creepy is the word over scary. This movie is just unsettling. Like it's just like ugh.
This movie is all atmosphere, which is one of its strengths.
That's exactly something I was going to come into this saying was after we've seen these sort of, once again, these very literate, attempting to be faithful adaptations, to see something that is all about mood and atmosphere, which is something the last several movies we've watched have had none of. This was such a I luxuriated in how much this thing was just about creating a vibe.
It really is. Every choice, visual, and then of course the soundtrack. It's like, oh right, yeah, I've forgotten that it has this blend of kind of almost folk rockish instrumentals, but then these classical pieces that come in. You go, boom! What an excellent needle drop that was there. I liken this to. It's such an interesting blend of the original Nosferatu, the novel Dracula, and his own personality.
Yeah.
But whereas Dracula, the story, is about, because Bram Stoker set out to be sort of real world about it, and it's about real people of the Victorian age having their normal lives interrupted by this folklorish supernatural creature.
Yeah.
This thing flips that, and it is of course much closer to the silent film,
where
it's more like it's more like normal people intruding on a dream, because everything connected to Dracula, the character in this movie, it's like they literally say it's like the castle isn't even there, it's just ruins. People think that the castle you're going to, it only exists in nightmares. And so the whole thing is sort of like, wow, it's a flip. It's not the nightmare comes to us, it's we go to the nightmare.
Right.
Because the movie and the way the people handle everything, meaning townspeople and everything, it just gets more and more surreal and fantasy-like.
Absolutely. No, it's totally this idea of almost like the infection of evil, right? Like once Harker crosses into that nightmare world, he brings that back. And literally, he puts that in a bit by matching it with this plague, right? The sort of idea that like there is a force consuming everything we see.
Whereas that is implied in the novel Dracula, that vampirism and Dracula himself is coming to spread his illness, spread his evil across the civilized world, don't you know?
Yeah.
This is he went very specifically. He said, no, vampirism is the plague, literally the plague, and like the armies of rats. That's of course, Dracula can control armies of rats in the novel,
Mhm.
but here he's just making it literal. It's like he's not only bringing his dirt boxes, he's bringing the plague. And then everyone loses their shit at the end as people drop left and right.
Yeah. And
we haven't talked about what movie we're talking about.
yeah,
Sorry.
well, we are. This week's movie, if you couldn't tell from that, is 1979's Nosferatu, the Vampyre.
The Vampyre.
The only thing this movie is missing, and it's honestly here just in this filmmaking, is the Werner Herzog narration. Which I bought the Shout Factory Blu-ray of this. And
does he do a director's commentary?
He does. I didn't have time to listen to it because I only was able to watch this today. But I'm excited to watch it with his comment. I did watch, though, there is a vintage documentary from the time that it came out, from 79, that was like a promotional thing that has a lot of Werner Herzog talking. And you're just like, God damn it. He was just always this guy.
Always that guy. I would love to hear his, and I'm sure because I will say this about Werner Herzog, he never gave no shits.
Nope.
And I would love to hear him justify things like, yeah, so the rats, they started eating each other, but that's what rats are going to do. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah, that was a particularly disturbing thing I read in the IMDb trivia here. It was
the dying of the rats, the dipping them in boiling dye to turn them gray, and then they weren't fed enough, and they started eating each other, and it's like, wow, that's gross.
Yeah,
it's
man,
not good.
Yeah, because as he says in that documentary, he goes, "Where do my films come from? Every film I make comes from pain." You're just like, God damn it, Herzog. Ever on brand, man. Like,
I know. And it makes, every time I see him in interview or whatever, it just makes Paul F. Tompkins' impression of him that much funnier.
It's an incredible impression. But I also love this late in career acting career that he has. Like
the bounty hunter's life is a tricky one. Mandalorian
hunting is the dangerous business,
Bring me the child.
Yeah. But then, like, and that's not even where that began, because I remember being he's the bad guy in the Tom Cruise Jack Reacher movie. That's thing that really, I remember going to see that movie because I'm a fan of those novels, and you're just like, holy shit. And you know what, though? He is fucking terrifying in that movie. Because he's a guy, his character in that is a guy who was in a gulag for like years and years, and he has no fingers because he chewed them all off to survive.
Jesus.
And he's like, "What would you do to survive, Mr. Reacher?"
Would you wear lifts in your shoes? Because you are a very tiny man. I heard you were supposed to be like almost 7 foot tall.
I'm looking forward to the new Amazon adaptation that's closer to the books.
You are very small, and you're talking of the bridge and what level of the bridge you are on. I find infuriating.
Actually, as you say that, I would kill to just hear what conversations between takes Tom Cruise and Werner Herzog had. Because
yes, actually, that would be great.
Real weirdos talking to each other in way different directions of their weirdness, but two totally strange dudes.
But I have a feeling it would all be, as is his way, Cruise would just constantly be turning it towards just ridiculous, optimistic, like, everything is great. What you do is great. Yeah. I'm inspired by you. Yeah. I'm having a great time. Yeah. I'm 64 years old. I feel like I'm 30. Let's go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. And if anything, even if the Scientology stuff, Werner Herzog would be more like, tell me more about Xenu. Like, he would just turn into documentarian Werner Herzog. The more Cruise spoke of the space alien gods he worshipped, the more my soul died inside.
Tell me more about the spirits trapped in the volcanoes. I am very fascinated by this.
And so all of this, I mean, the thing is, like, especially now looking back on this movie and knowing Herzog, not only as a filmmaker, but just as this pop cultural icon that he is, like, this is totally the Werner Herzog horror movie.
It is. And what also struck me as very him, all of his films have, the classic ones.
Yeah.
They tend to really emphasize natural dangers.
Yeah.
Obviously Fitzcarraldo and
Mhm.
and obviously Aguirre, and
Yeah.
so when you see like the gypsies with the black coffins on a raft going down the river, I'm like, God, it's just he can't stop with rafts on rivers, and he turns the Borgo Pass into an actual cavern through the mountain, which is not what the Borgo Pass really is.
It's one of my favorite things about this version of it, right? Is this is the first time I've ever really been captivated by Jonathan Harker's journey to Castle Dracula, like because
it does take on a fairy tale or folklorish slant.
and he's going through these real natural environments that don't make any sense with where it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But they're so captivating in the way Herzog films them and with the music under them. It's not just a guy going from a series of coaches up a thing. Eventually he gets to the coach, but it does feel like this journey, and it not being real, it not being the real locations does kind of add to this surreal dreamlike thing of him entering this dark other world.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I just find, here's an example though, when I talk about like how boring I found some of the other stuff. I see a lot of people on IMDb who don't like this movie because they say it's boring. And it is slow, but I'm so captivated by the imagery and the mood of it that this movie isn't boring to me.
No, and I can see that as well. That's why it really does boil down to who's making the movie. Because if you're in the hands of Werner Herzog, this is not going to get you all geared up. This is not a horror film. No, this is not also, it doesn't have any action element to it.
That's my guess about some of the negative reviews where people going like, I heard this thing was scary, and it's like, no, it's eerie, it's creepy, it's unsettling, creepy. It's not.
And what an interesting performance by a guy. I mean, for all of the legend of the really fucked up person that is Klaus Kinski,
straight up legit psycho, like really, yes. Like legit psychopath in real life,
but also a legit actor. I mean, a Nicolas Cage type where it's always unpredictable what you're going to get. And this performance is actually, I think, the first I ever saw of Klaus Kinski when I was a kid, when I watched this on cable.
Yeah.
And then you watch him in the other movies where he's a maniac.
Yeah.
But this thing is so restrained. And actually that was Herzog telling him, I want this, and he delivers. Well, this is an interesting Dracula. Did you see
his directing approach to Kinski in the IMDb trivia?
What does that say?
Let's see. Where is this here? There's some. I actually have to scroll because there's actually a lot of trivia about this movie, unlike a lot of the stuff we normally cover, where it's like, one thing. Here we go. In order to get the restrained performance out of Kinski that Herzog desired, he would provoke Kinski into a massive tantrum, so he would be exhausted that when the time came to shoot his scenes, he was much more low key.
So, in other words, he put his life in jeopardy every time they were about to shoot.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to push this insane dude to fury and let him go for about 45 minutes, and then we'll shoot the scene.
Well, I just love the idea of him being like, so Klaus, how do you feel about taxes or whatever? And he's like, let me tell you, Werner.
Klaus, I read your autobiography. I think it is all pure fiction.
What? No!
Have you ever read that thing, by the way?
I have not. I've seen chunks of it. I've heard things that are in it. I know it's totally insane.
Yeah, it is. It's actually quite gross. Yeah, but you would think that even if it is all fake, and I would hope that it is, you still have to think that the energy that went into him making up these things is also disturbing.
Well, because what kind of brain would want to present themselves that way?
So there you go. Because he presents himself as being a sexual predator, an incredibly disgusting human being, and he's proud of it. Yeah, he's proud of talking about him hitting on his own daughter, and you're like, okay, all right. Klaus,
and from what I gather, like there's some credence to parts of it, and people have. I mean, he certainly was a troublesome figure whether or not all of it was true. And also just the the amount of times they talk about him threatening Werner Herzog's life on all the stuff they worked on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Burden of Dreams is an incredible documentary about the making of Fitzcarraldo that is very worth checking out.
It is so good. It is so good. It's one of those... It's easily in the category of Hearts of Darkness. You know, it's like great movie-making documentaries about troubled productions or insane directors
that are as captivating as the movies themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I just am scrolling through Klaus Kinski info here, and
never apologize about
I never heard this, that Kinski was offered the villain role of Major Todt in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That would have been great.
But he turned it down, telling Spielberg he thought the script was a yawn-making, boring pile of shit.
And then whatever movie he made after that was much worse. It had to be. Had to be.
Well, because most things are much worse than Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
But also, I think Spielberg probably dodged a bullet not having to work with him on that. Because good God. He was this awful to Herzog. I'm sure he would have thought nothing of Spielberg. Anyway, though, apparently they talk about the 4 hours of makeup he had to go through each day for this. And he was apparently, according to the makeup artist, exceedingly patient and well-behaved during the makeup.
That I'd heard. And I think they said, I think it's because... if you got on his good side, if he genuinely liked you, then it was like no big deal. Like he could be extremely gracious.
Yeah.
If he had the macho butting of heads with Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
But this makeup artist, he got along with great.
Who was
and
like
sort of like
kindly,
4 hours in the makeup chair, no big deal.
Well,
no big deal.
In the documentary that's on the Blu-ray there, they have footage of him getting the makeup applied, and the person interviewing him is going like, well, what, isn't this a burden? Don't you feel this? He goes, no, because I must look like this in the movie. I must become Dracula, so I have no choice.
And it is very good makeup.
Yeah, it is. But I love that whole idea where he's like, why would I complain? It's what I must do to become the character.
Yeah. At least, I mean, he had a huge ego, but he took the work seriously.
Well,
he wasn't trying to be pretty ever. It was like, no, if I'm going to be a crazy person in an asylum who smears his own shit on the wall, I will smear my own shit on the wall. And you're like, okay, buddy.
That's
all
why,
right.
What was the Dracula thing we saw him in that was boring? That he wasn't...
Count Dracula.
Yeah, and we thought...
He was in Count Dracula.
And he was Renfield. He was Renfield, and he wasn't that interesting. I couldn't believe it.
Because they had given him nothing to do, and he apparently just didn't even want to be there. You could tell.
Because you're like, oh my God, Kinski is Renfield? Holy shit, get ready. Now, this Renfield I fucking love in this movie.
This Renfield... this is what I love, is there's... in the novel Dracula and in most film productions, Dracula presents himself as an outsider, but he is someone who's going to come to London, blend into society, and then take it over from within. This Dracula, there's nothing human about him.
No.
Except for, a kind of weird longing to die.
Yeah.
He introduces himself completely as an alien right off the bat. This Renfield, we don't see two sides of him, because the very first time we see him, he's giggling off his fucking nut. He has absolutely no sanity. He has no chill, this Renfield.
Yeah.
So do you get the impression that maybe he had met with Dracula before to set up this deal?
That's the sense I get, because that goes back to this Herzog thing about like any contact with this being will drive you insane.
There you go. Yeah, I can see that.
Because this is also a Harker who we lose to darkness in this, unlike the other things. So it's just like it's either death or madness to spend any time with this guy.
He follows the storyline of the novel, sort of. He follows the storyline of the original silent film very closely.
Yeah.
But then the ending is totally Herzog. The ending is sort of like, wow, there's that cynical beat.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
No, there is no defeating of evil,
There is no such thing as a happy ending.
um, before we dive into the movie plot point by plot point here, I will ask: the version you watched, was it in English or was it in German?
It was in English. It was the only one I could find, and I know that's not considered by himself to be the preferred version. I would prefer to see it in German, but it was the English one. Which one did you watch?
I watched the German one.
Yeah, all right. We saw two totally different films.
The Shout Factory has both on it, so.
No, the only one I could find was the English.
Yeah, I think that is the more common one because I mean they're very much touting on the Shout Factory that they have restored the original German and in like nice quality.
I mean, it's still an incredibly effective film, but I will say there's some clumsiness to the English speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Weirdly enough, mostly from our lovely Isabella Gianni, who I don't know how her German is, but her English is very heavily French accented, and you're like, okay.
Well,
interesting.
The way they made this movie is so weird in that sense, right?
Yeah, they didn't film it twice.
No,
apparently
they just they just filmed some scenes in English and some scenes in German, and then
they would dub.
They dubbed over it entirely for both.
Yeah.
Weird. So that's why, like when you watch the English version, which I have seen, sometimes it matches up perfectly what they're saying. Other times it doesn't. And you're going like, this is disconcerting. And it's actually the same watching the German version because sometimes they're mouthing English and I'm hearing German come out of them. Really weird. It's really, really bizarre. I don't know why that was the decision of what to do. It just seems like film it all one way and dub it, or
when we get Werner on the show next time, we'll ask him.
Yeah, Werner, how do you think Well, no, I actually, because one of the things I read in the trivia as well was Werner had never seen, the only things he was familiar with vampire-wise, he says, were the Stoker novel, the original Nosferatu, and like some other German movie. He'd never seen any of the Dracula films or anything like that.
Yeah, I did see that somewhere they said that maybe it's in the Wikipedia, but to him the finest German film ever made was Murnau's Nosferatu,
and he's talking
which
about
is saying something.
He's talking about on the documentary. He goes, if I could ever make something as good as Murnau, I would stop making films because I would have achieved everything I've wanted,
That said, there is a very famous shot in the original Nosferatu that I kept because again, it's been years since I've seen this, and I know how closely he followed it, and I was like, going, is he going to do that? And he didn't, and I was like, weird, because it is one of the great shots. And it's specifically the death. The death scene here is done so weirdly.
It is. I had the same thought because I've seen Nosferatu, but even more so, I've seen that death scene, time and time again and stuff about
where the rays of the morning light are hitting him, and he reels back and he kind of fades out like he's being dissolved by sheer light.
Here it's more like Kinski's poisoned by the sun.
Yeah, he just falls down.
Yeah, his eyes go all weird, and he's like, ah!
And then he's a corpse on the floor until Van Helsing, who's one of the worst screen Van Helsings of all time.
Oh, I'm going to go ahead and say the worst, and not just because of the actor, but because he's in the plot not used.
Yeah, he is actually partially antagonist.
Yeah,
because of his closed-minded.
Yeah,
it's like that's a completely different read on that character of him being a closed-minded scientist who is not willing to believe that such things could exist.
Actually, before we get into the movie as well, I realize because we've been doing so many TV movies, I haven't been doing this, but let's talk about the poster for this.
Let's do it. It's gorgeous.
It is a great poster.
I've always loved this poster.
The Vampyre. I mean, it's so ornate and detailed with lots of stuff on it. There's lots going on here.
It's very it's sort of reminiscent of Alphonse Mucha. Sort of that sort of Art Nouveau.
Yeah.
It's done in, I think, all colored pencils or possibly Conti crayon.
Yeah.
And it is this gilded frame that's built into the design of the frame. You've got great Gothic lettering for Nosferatu the Vampire, but you've got lots of bat imagery. You have a crossed stake and mallet,
Yeah.
and you have great vines and blood tendrils and things like that. It's great.
Yeah.
Then on the inside of it,
We
you've
have
got this great
this profile of
profile.
Dracula as he's holding Lucy, which we'll talk about. I don't know what
we'll
that decision was about, but
me either.
And he's holding her, and you see behind her, holding up her head, his weird, long fingernailed, clawed hand almost, the creepy vampire hand that he has here.
I love the sort of bat wing shape that you're like, is that part of his cloak, or is it just? Obviously, it's not supposed to be literal, but there's this sort of bat wing shape that's entering. We see his hands, so it's not his hands, but sort of coming in to sort of cover part of her thigh.
Yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, and then out the window is the water with the ship, and in the background the castle.
Yeah, it's great. This is a great poster.
Once again, if I saw that, I'd be going like, I gotta see this. That looks weird.
That's the kind of thing where had I had the means in my college years, I would have been on the wall. I would have had the Nosferatu poster on the wall.
Yeah. This is the film school cool horror movie poster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right next to your Scarface, which is the classic. Every dorm room needs a Scarface poster.
I could never do it. Scarface, as much as I do enjoy it, and it is schlocky greatness.
Yeah,
but it's just so typical of kind of like a bro thing. I could never do that. It's like, first you get the money, then you get the, like, okay, great. Yeah,
I have a Scarface poster on my wall, but it is not that Scarface poster. It's actually like a painted poster with all the characters and stuff on it.
I would have been much more impressed if you had Paul Mooney. Go back to the original Scarface.
I have that Scarface, yeah.
Actually, that is a good poster for its time period.
Totally, and I love that movie. I'm a huge fan of that era of gangster films in general. So. I would be more inclined to have like White Heat if I was going to pull a movie from that era.
Oh, White Heat.
I mean, White Heat is a masterpiece.
Top of the world, ma.
Great. All right, so this movie, as we said, it starts with, opening titles over these real-life mummies, which have nothing to do with anything other than Herzog is going like, enter my creepy nightmare.
I hope you feel ill at ease immediately.
Yeah. And we cut right from this, once the credits are done over the mummies, to Lucy waking in her bed and screaming. Isabelle Adjani.
This Lucy, who, is the love interest, main female, so Mina has been totally shafted.
I don't know what that's about, because Herzog's big thing is now that the rights are public domain, I don't have to fight, and I can use all the names, but I'm gonna make Mina Lucy because I like the name Lucy better. I don't know what his thinking here was.
I can only say that, and I'm sure this was a choice of Stoker's, is that Lucy ties into Lucient, as in light, and so therefore the name itself denotes light.
Now I can imagine Herzog saying that. You see, she is the light at the center of the picture.
Even though, of course, he has Isabelle Adjani made up to look like a silent movie actress, so her naturally black hair, and he's done the Ava Green like eye makeup to where she already looks quasi-vampiric right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, just in general, you look at Isabelle Adjani, she has very dark hair and very pale skin, and then he accentuates that even more with this makeup. She looks as ghoulish as anything in the movie.
He does sort of make her leans on her being sort of prescient. She keeps having visions and bad dreams for the whole thing. She knows what's going on. Well, she's the hero of this goddamn piece.
Which is actually, I like that. I really like that. That she is not. He's taken the female lead of Dracula and made her very much an active hero as opposed to a victim.
Van Helsing is essentially like, I don't believe you. She goes, fine, I'll do it myself. I'll take care of this myself.
I don't like the sidelining of Van Helsing, but I do like the bumping up of the female lead to be like, no, we'll talk about it. I love the scene where Dracula comes to her like for the first time. She's like, I'm not buying your shit, pal.
It's great.
That is great stuff. So she's worried about Jonathan. She's like, there's something off, something bad's gonna happen. I don't know what it is. but I'm worried about you. This is the first of 4 scenes where she's worried about him. Once again, the movie as a plot, like, that's the thing where I'm going through this, like, plot point by plot point. We're more just talking about scenes that happen, because it is so much about mood. So you do have a lot of her being like, I'm worried again about Jonathan. And you're like, okay. Because it doesn't...
All right, we got the point.
Yeah.
You're worried.
But I don't feel that way watching it. I do now discussing it as I look through it. But watching it, I'm just so absorbed in what he's doing. But when you actually start to look through the plot, I'm going like, not a ton is going on here.
No.
So he goes into work, and this is a change now where Renfield is a co-worker of his in the real estate office or whatever this is.
This has been done before, kind of, actually. Either sometimes, like in the 30 movie, 31, where Renfield takes the place of Jonathan, essentially, or at least at the beginning. But yeah, the idea of them being co-workers or connected, that's been done a few times.
I like it from a story standpoint of, like, it's all part of the plan, you know? Like, it's all, like,
I actually did appreciate that. It was like, the idea is that in this one, Renfield was probably the first point of contact, and then he's sending Jonathan, knowing he's sending him to his master to have him get fucked with. And then but essentially he set it all up. He's basically going and Renfield is crazy right off the bat in this real estate office, giggling and going, I'm going to send you to Count Dracula. He lives in Transylvania. It's quite far away. And you're going to need to leave today.
We have to talk about this performance from Roland Topor. Who is kind of an actor, but not. I mean, it wasn't really primarily known as an actor.
I think he was an artist.
Yes, he was. He was a painter, French illustrator and painter and filmmaker. He did a lot of stuff with Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
He also wrote the novel The Tenant, which then became the Roman Polanski movie.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. And he wrote a number of screenplays and stuff like that. Most of his credits on IMDb are writing credits. But I love the story of how Herzog came to cast this guy, which was he saw him in a French TV show. He had been greatly impressed with the crazy, utterly desperate laugh with which Topor had concluded his every segment on that show. So I just love the idea of, it's like, that laugh on television, it haunts me. I need him in my movie.
He gets a lot of mileage out of it, because essentially, where a lot of people would say essentially this Renfield is constantly using his giggle to break up his lines.
One of my favorite.
He is laughing all the time.
One of my favorite things on the documentary is, because they're on set, you know, this is like visit the set of this promotional thing, right? And they have a scene, they have a clip in there where he's directing Topor, and Topor finishes his line, and Herzog goes, "Yes, if you could add a couple more laughs into it, though." And I'm like, "Oh, well, there you go." And he's like, "Sure, okay, yeah, I can do a couple more."
I give you allowance to laugh as much as you can.
Because then to see this totally, like, the real guy who's totally sane, just being like, "Yeah, I can put in a couple more crazy laughs." Sure, Werner.
Yeah.
All
gotcha.
Right,
Sounds good. It is. He's a delightedly insane dude.
We are. I mean, when you talk about the idea that Stoker wanted to be this very real world, we're in no semblance of a real world. These are not real people. These performances are very big and operatic, and, you know, befitting kind of the silent movie that he's remaking, but also now we're adding in the vocal. It is so interesting that Kinski is so restrained and still weird.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of the performances around him that are really crazy. Because where Bruno Ganz ends up going as Harker is...
It's really interesting, because Bruno Ganz is, again, one of their great actors. Has
fantastic.
Been around... I mean, before this, he was already big, but afterwards he continued to be. And I've seen him in several films, and... I mean, he's
him as Hitler in Downfall. Amazing.
Oh, my God.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. But him here, he is either being directed. I'm sure he's being directed. Werner Herzog is going to direct the fuck out of you. But but he's very there is a lot of theatricality to the way this is done. This feels almost like a stage play, but weirdly set in actual surroundings, because he is strangely wooden, not in a bad way, but his Jonathan is all very earnest and kind of flat until his change comes on.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting shift, especially if you've seen this guy act before. You'd think that maybe he's not that great, because here he's coming across very sort of like, oh, Lucy, if only we could go back to the beach and hang out together, and I love you dearly.
Mm-hmm.
He's so sort of blandly heroic until he becomes crazy. And then you're like, then you see him in something else, you go, no, this was a choice. He made a choice here, or was directed to do this.
Well, when you talk about him, Herzog directing these people, once again, there's footage in that documentary where like they show them filming the scene where we see Dracula on the ship looking down, right? The shot looking up at him. And Herzog is not only acting out the exact physicality in the way he's holding his hands and showing Kinski, but then they pan down and they show that he's drawn out in chalk on the deck of the ship, like arrows and a path and this, and you'll go exactly to here and to that. And you're
everything.
Yeah, everything was
He's mapped out everything.
Yeah, and you're just like, wow.
And by the way, John, I get it. You have the documentary. You have the Blu-ray.
Well, I will say though, it is one of the lighter ones on special features, unfortunately, because it just has the audio commentary and this old vintage documentary.
That's still pretty cool to see any kind of set. Him on set.
But I do love like when Shout goes and does the retrospective stuff and talks to people. They didn't do any of that for Nosferatu, unfortunately. But I will listen to that Herzog commentary track, because once again, I just Herzog is so weird and hypnotic to listen to.
Yes.
So they're like, we have to leave today, all right? Yeah, that's the thing. You have to head on your way to Castle Dracula today. And I like that Jonathan's like, yeah, okay, it might not be too bad to get out of the city for a little while.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, that might be a fun trip. Oh, okay.
And of course, though, Lucy's like, you're leaving today? I don't know. I sense something bad happening. This sounds dangerous. I don't like you doing this. But he goes anyway, and we get a scene where, boy, any other supporting character in Dracula, for the most part, just gets really sidestepped here, because there is a Mina in this who's there, and I don't even know who this other guy is supposed to be that's standing there.
They give him a name, and and maybe it's the accents that were being used, but I was like, what is his? Because I was expecting him to be an Arthur or a Quincy it's just.
I think it's
no.
I think it's Schrader.
I don't know.
That's the only other named character in the cast list here.
Well, then perhaps it is Schrader.
Dracula,
but it is
Lucy, Harker, Renfield, Van Helsing, Schrader, and Mina. Other than that, it's like town official, captain, coffin bearer, violin.
Yeah,
boy.
Maybe it is then. But they do call him something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't any of the expected names. So yeah, we're not quite sure what is.
It doesn't matter because he's not a character.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all waving goodbye, and he's like, "Be sure to take care of my precious Lucy."
And they're like, "Sure thing."
Yeah, and he rides off. Where he then arrives at this inn with all these gypsy people.
Yeah.
In it.
It's interesting that this. I kept thinking how bizarre, but interesting it is that in this version, it's not London. They are leaving. He lives in Wismar, Germany, and he's going to, Transylvania. Not that would have been a quick trip,
right?
But it's still not crossing the water,
right?
So I kept going. Are we going to get the boat? Well, we do get the boat, but it's weird. They just go down a river, in the boat. But so he's just riding his horse. It's not like I am on the train going through blah blah blah.
Right. My favorite thing here was, I don't know if you saw this. Herzog wanted to shoot in Transylvania. He intended to shoot all the Transylvanian scenes in Transylvania, and he had even scouted and decided upon locations. But the Romanian government, under their communist dictator, would not allow the production of a film that associated Vlad Dracul with anything but being a national hero.
Yeah. Ceausescu, he you know, to them, Vlad Dracula, and Dracula, his father, you know, they are like national heroes. They're like
Yeah.
their King Arthur. They actually, Vlad the Third, who is the Impaler, the one we always talk about, they literally have folklore saying in our country's, you know, darkest hour, the Impaler will come back,
Like much like King
like
Arthur, right?
King Arthur. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they never connected him to the vampire until, of course, when Ceausescu fell,
Yeah.
and the Berlin Wall came down, when communism went kaput.
Yeah.
Then they're like going, shit, there's a lot of tourist money to be made off of people who love the vampire.
I know that's the whole thing, right? People go to
Yeah.
Transylvania all the time and see Castle Dracula.
Which isn't even Castle Dracula.
No.
But yes, there's a lot of things that tie in, and they say, oh, come to the Dracula thing. And
Yeah.
every inn you go to has special drinks or meals based on stuff from the novel. And you're like going, they never connected that historical figure until Bram Stoker, an Irishman, comes up with that novel. And now they're going, cha-ching.
Right.
Make sure to buy the T-shirt on your way out. Make sure to get the plush Dracula on your way out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I totally would. I would buy so much Dracula shit. If
Oh
I
my
went there.
God.
So much. They would see you and I coming a mile away.
I have, in my spare time, when I dreamed of having money in someday retirement, I sit there going, I want to make that trip. I know it's cheesy as fuck to do that touristy thing, but I would take the tours. I would go to the Borgo Pass. I would do all of that stuff.
yeah. It'd be the Brooklyn Nine-Nine where they go to the Nakatomi building.
It's exactly
Take my picture.
I would go to Metropolis, Illinois, but I know that that's not the Metropolis.
Yeah.
But I would still want to get my picture taken in front of that big Superman statue.
He's at the end, and in classic fashion, any Dracula thing, as soon as he mentions, "Oh yeah, I'm going to visit a Count Dracula," everybody stops and is like,
Yes.
You did what about now? Who?" And they're like,
this is an inn where outside the inn there are a bunch of travelers, as in the Romani. They're hanging out, and they seem to be local pests to this innkeeper, but he still has a bunch of them in his dining area.
Yeah.
So when the Count Dracula thing comes up, everyone stares like, what? And this innkeeper, I love how he has no respect for personal space, because he's right over Harker's shoulder going, they believe, they're very superstitious people. They believe this land is full of ghosts and Dracula's, and tonight's the night of St. George's Day, and all the spirits will be out. And he's like, okay, that's great. And then when they cut to outside, and now they're hanging around the campfire, it's all the Romani. And the innkeeper's still there, literally attached to Harker's side, going, I'm just going to lean in and translate. They're saying that you're going to lose your soul if you go there. And innkeeper, bug off.
Well, because they actually, he's, let's see, he's warned not to go to Castle Dracula. Who gives him this book about vampires? That's the thing, because suddenly he has
it's the old lady.
Yeah, right, because the
old lady comes in, and she doesn't speak, I guess, German, but she's giving him his cross, and he's like, oh, okay. And then she hands him a book. He goes, for me? And she's like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, okay, great, thank you.
And then what I love about everybody in this movie is they're very, very convenient for us, the audience. They read everything out loud.
Yes.
And it's all the classic vampire stuff, right? All the readings from the vampire books are everything you could ever know about vampires.
And indeed,
everything you always want to know about vampires, but we're afraid to ask, is what the.
I gotta say that, of course, I enjoyed this, and it is by a consummate filmmaker, but it still cracks me up because even someone of a Werner Herzog stature can't think of better ways to deliver exposition. There's a scene later when Harker's in the castle. He goes, he's leaving me in the castle. He's going to go to Vismar.
Yep.
He's going to go after Lucy. I have to get out of here.
Yep.
And he's saying it to himself out loud.
My God,
that. Come on.
Yeah, totally. I don't know what it is. Something about this material just leads people to do you got to do.
Well, because there's no one else for him to talk to, and then he's like, I guess I have to tell the audience what's going on.
Yeah. You guys seeing this shit?
He looks out at the camera going, is it just me, or are they leaving?
Yeah.
Are they going to leave me here?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
He does try to get a coachman to take him, and the guy's like, hey, no. No, I don't think so, buddy. And he's like, all right, well, if no one's going to... And he goes, well, how about I do love this when he goes, well, can I buy one of your horses? The guy goes, I don't see any horses here.
I did kind of like the scene because it's sort of like, can you take me and your coach? He's like, I don't have a coach.
Yeah.
And it's clearly right there. He's like going, okay, well, will you sell me one of your horses? He goes, I'm all out of horses.
Yeah.
As he's petting his own horse. And you're like going, okay,
I don't,
all right.
Hey, man, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's sort of
this
like
is
he's
the
going up
German
against the
version of that
mob.
guy. Yeah. Horses? I don't see no horses.
No. Boxes of DVD players?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Must have fallen off the back of a coach somewhere. Fell off a wagon or something. Why is there a guy from New Jersey in the middle of this German version of Dracula?
Because it has that feel that he's dealing with some Teamsters, local Teamsters.
Yeah.
It'd be a shame if something happened to your crypt. I'm just saying, Count, a little protection goes a long way.
I'm so tired of these Teamsters always hassling me.
I'm just saying, windows get broken. Sunlight comes in. Maybe you want to protect those windows.
Oh, here we go. The shakedown begins. Dracula famously...
Accidents happen all the time. I constantly walk around with holy wafers. What if I was to trip? One ends up in your dirt.
All right.
Uh-oh, you got a wafer in your dirt.
How much to make you go away? Like Dracula's ultimate nemesis, the Teamsters.
The Teamsters.
You can never get rid of them.
They keep bleeding me, and I know how ironic this sounds. They keep bleeding me for money.
What's he saying? This is the local police chief. The guy's like,
yes,
yeah,
and
cry me a river, Count.
He's doing it as the Count from Sesame Street. That's $100 in a payout for protection. $200 in a payout for protection.
Look, I'm not made of money. I don't really have, much of an income. All right, so then we get this whole sequence once again that we talked about, where he's going through these beautiful shots. Once again, I mean, nobody shoots these sort of picturesque nature settings as well as Herzog. I mean, my God.
I know.
It is stunning to watch, even though, once again, I am also aware I am just watching a guy walk around, but it is so beautifully photographed.
Yeah, and it feels, I'll say this, even if he wasn't able to shoot in Transylvania, at the very least, it feels Eastern European.
Yeah.
That kind of scenery. And he gets... fog enshrouded mountaintops. I'm like, that's what I want.
No, and it's a level of scale, and it's really real locations that we just aren't used to seeing in other Dracula movies. It's not a set. He's really in these places, and you're like, whoa, this is much more impressive than the soundstage at Hammer.
Yeah. This is much better than Shepperton.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, when he gets through all this stuff, there is a coach that picks him up. It's not Dracula at the helm of it, which the IMDb pointed that out as if that's trivia. Just going like, normally Dracula's the coachman, but here they never explain who this guy is. And you're like, yeah.
You can only assume that he was sent by Dracula because, of course, it's the middle of nowhere, and he picks him up and takes him through the Borgo Pass.
This Dracula is a little alarming when you see him, let's be honest.
Holy shit.
Because he does arrive at the castle, and the first time we see Klaus Kinski, he's kind of in the shadows, and he steps forward, and you're like, Jesus, that's a monster.
Yeah, and his everything about his performance is different than what you'd expect if you know this actor, but also it's different from pretty much any other Dracula.
Yeah.
It's not like he's timid or anything. It's just that there's not the courtliness. There's this awkward... He just kind of goes, right, this is a human. I have to remember how to act around a human.
The thing I like about Kinski's Dracula, and I think a lot of that's in the performance, is he's old. This is a very old creature. And he's kind of tired. And he's kind of... He's removed from humanity in that sense because he's just been so inhuman for so long. That's the sense I get from him all the time. That's why he's always just... kind of here and like
there's a lot of weariness to him, which does make it interesting why this particular Dracula has a plan at all. It's like, why, if you're that, worn down, then why are you shifting to a whole new place?
It almost seems like he's just like, oh, what else am I gonna do? Dracula gonna Dracula, like it is sort of thing. But my heart's just not in the super villainy as much as it once was. I mean,
Something I liked about
it.
what Herzog did here, because Herzog also adapted it. He wrote this, so he gives us, a lot of the things we're looking forward to, a lot of the moments, but he rewrites them. He's not going to give us the I am Dracula, I bid you welcome, enter freely and of your own will. He doesn't do that. The sentiments are there, but they're again, Kinski was told to kind of toss them. It's like, please make yourself welcome, come in, and you're like, oh, okay. And later on with the Children of the Night, very nicely turned and expanded on. I was like, ooh, that's some good writing.
Solid stuff.
It's called attention to. Plus, can we talk about his nails? Holy fuck, those hands.
Oh, so good.
The visuals are clearly based on, Max Schreck as Count Orlok. It's the classic Nosferatu. Iconic. So he's bald, rat face. He's got the rat fangs.
What's really interesting is the thing we're doing next week is going to have a very similar vampire.
Yes, Reggie Nalder as whatever his name is.
I can't remember it offhand myself.
Does he have a name?
He has a name.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
he does.
He definitely does.
I can only think of, isn't it Barlow is the name of the human guy? Our friend, Mr. Mason.
James Mason will be back with us next week.
I say, the master wishes to... I've forgotten. And I've pissed my pants.
Oh, no. Barlow is the vampire.
Barlow's the vampire. Okay.
Starker is
Starker. Yeah. All right. So Barlow is the vampire. Okay.
Yeah. Kurt.
I cannot wait.
Kurt
for next
Barlow is the vampire of Salem's Lot.
And that's not really his name.
No,
he's changed it many times over the centuries.
That's the Austrian businessman who has purchased the place.
Oh, I can't wait for next week.
Yeah. Next 2 weeks, because that one we'll have to do as 2 episodes.
I know. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's long. So yeah, he lets him in. And here's the thing that's so interesting, because what Kinski's doing, we're talking about being very subdued and quiet and stuff, is a lot of what I criticize Jardin for, but here it's so much more precise and calculated, and there's a vision to it. Whereas you're more just like when I was watching Jardin, I'm like, what are you doing? Because you want to be, and also just the way. I mean, just a lot of it plays into the look. When you see, you're like, oh my god, look at this thing. Look at this guy.
That's what I thought was interesting too about Bruno Ganz, is that he certainly looks uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but I guess being a proper gentleman, he's not going to dwell on it. But holy hell, would I have, as that actor playing Jonathan Harker, I would constantly be stealing looks at this guy, because this is not a human being. You would just be constantly looking over when he's not paying attention, just go, what are you?
Yeah,
I would be so freaked out. But of course, it's the same thing. He comes in, dinner's all laid out. He's like, I won't be joining you. I never eat after a certain hour.
That,
and you're like, right?
Yeah, where he goes like, it is after midnight. I don't eat past this
and
time.
He's like, I have all the papers ready for you to sign. He's like going, okay, let me look at those. Great.
Yeah, he's just looking over those. And here we're just condensing, because this is actually, what is this, like a 107-minute movie or something like that. He condenses here, so instead of doing like a separate shaving scene, he has Harker cut his finger when he's slicing bread.
On a butter knife, basically.
And
it's good.
It's good, and it's also Kinski doesn't play it like blood. He's more like ooh, let me see that terrible cut.
It's pretty great. He's like going, you must be careful. The knife is old.
Yeah.
And possibly dirty, and he goes, I can take care of that. And he gets he's being subtle, but there's definite this hunger to it. It's like there's an old manner of taking care of that. If you allow me. And he puts his hand out, and Harker's like, oh, I'm good, because I get what you're at, but no, I don't need. And then he's like, oh. And then he just goes for it. At that point, he's like, give it to me. He starts sucking his hand.
He does, and then Harker backs away, And Dracula just like knocks this chair out of the way and comes at him. And
Yeah.
he's like, and then kind of recomposes himself. He's like, oh, well, that's enough for tonight.
That'll do.
Yeah. Like once again, everything is just so much more subtle and quieter about it. It's not, we don't have the blood close-ups, rack zooms,
Yeah.
It's more just like, yes, and then he gets a little taste of it. And then when that gets broke, he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, no, wait. No, I'm not crazy.
Uncomfortable.
It's
uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. And I do love the way Gans plays this, because at this point now he's like back in a chair and he's like, okay,
it's gonna be like that, is it?
Yeah.
I'm stuck here for how long?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Exactly. Then we cut back to Lucy, who awakes in terror and sees this bat crawling around her room.
Yeah.
This obviously isn't Dracula yet.
No.
But
I think isn't this another just nightmare?
Yeah, it's a portent of things to come, right? Is sort of the way I look at this. Right?
So, but she is seeing in her dream or nightmare a bat, and like I say, Werner Herzog's just good because he's using a real fruit bat, but the way he's filming it in the dark and not zooming in on it, not because they have cute little faces.
We talked about that in the BBC Count Dracula.
But when you see this thing just clawing its way up her, what do you call it, the canopy around her bed, it's creepy as fuck, and you're like, yeah, that's scary that's not good.
Yeah, because he shoots it well, and the slow motion bat footage he pulled from some nature documentary.
Yeah, we do see a flying bat shot very
we see that
dramatically.
We see that throughout the movie once again, and he's all using it though once again to just build the dread of it. He's not really going like, look at this bat. It's more just like, ooh, there's nothing in this movie that's like ooh, it's scary.
I love the idea of a director of any horror film just going, ooh, look at this bat.
Check it out.
Are you kidding me?
That's got to be freaking you out, right?
Zoom in.
Yeah.
They can see the wires. Zoom.
You know what? William Castle was that dude.
William Castle was that dude, we wanted that from a William Castle.
That's the thing that's great, but he was those like, look at this shit, look at that, look at it, that's crazy, right? Here comes a skeleton at you. Wow. More
we filmed it in Ghost-O-Vision. Watch out.
Ghost-O-Vision. Oh my god. I once again highly recommend the William Castle documentary that is wonderful.
And I also highly recommend the film Matinee.
Oh, incredible. Joe Dante's Matinee. Love it.
Yeah, which is not about William Castle, but it may as well.
I mean, John Goodman essentially is William Castle in it, though, right? I mean,
it's so good.
Yeah,
Mant.
Yeah, that is
his movie. Mant.
That is an unsung gem. I don't hear enough people talk about that. That kind of came and
no,
went,
that's a comfort food movie for me. It's delightful.
So meanwhile, it's the next morning now. Jonathan is walking around the castle, going like, nobody's here.
Yeah. Hello?
Ain't no hello. Yeah, which is weird. And so he writes a letter to Lucy. It's interesting. This time, though, it's not the way letters, he's going like, hey, look, there's no mail service here, so I'm going to write this letter in my journal and whatever. It's almost just like he goes, I'm not going to get this to you, but like, I just want to record some of the shit that's going on here.
Yeah. It's eschewing the classic stuff from the book about Dracula forcing him to write letters to make it seem like everything's okay. Yeah. They don't have that in there, and also there's no him sneaking letters to the gypsies downstairs, like, please get this out.
Yeah, no brides in this one either.
No brides.
No.
In fact, it's very much. I like the Lucy from a distance. Scaring him off of basically draining Jonathan.
Yeah. Because
Dracula here is basically going to be the bride and drain him.
Right, because that's the thing.
And then Lucy's like, no! And he's like, oh, okay.
Right, yeah, because we have Dracula's finally coming at Jonathan, and then Lucy's wandering around outside.
Yeah, doing the sleepwalking thing.
Yeah, and the other people are like, get back in here, Lucy, what are you doing? And then she screams out Jonathan's name, and it stops Dracula, who's about to. He's like, "What?" Oh,
Yeah, it's kind of great. This long distance psychic
well, and
guarding.
here's the
that's
thing:
going on.
because of the vibe of this movie and just how not plot bases and how atmospheric it is, you don't have to explain this psychic connection between
No,
Dracula.
you don't.
It's
It
all
doesn't have to.
you just kind of roll with everything this movie is presenting you because it is just so ethereal and
Yeah,
it's
it's
not.
dreamlike,
Yeah,
and you just go with its
yeah.
own interior lack of logic.
She screams
Um,
Jonathan. Dracula stops and looks up, and you're like, oh, they're connected somehow.
yeah,
Got it. Well, and also when we talk about getting rid of the bride and stuff like that, it is so stripped down his version of Stoker's novel at all. Like what he borrows from the basic structure of it is just like,
yeah.
and he's also taking from Murnau, of course, but Murnau's movie is shorter and even simpler than this movie, so
Yeah.
he's still expanding. Like you're saying, this is a good middle ground between the Murnau Nosferatu and Stoker's book.
He takes some stuff, and like you said, this was meant to be technically just he was doing his version of Murnau's Nosferatu,
Yeah.
but it was a last minute thing in 1979 when Dracula finally went public domain. Right before this movie goes into production, and he goes, "Great, I'm going to use those names."
Yeah.
He's like, "I won't call him Count Orlok. He is now full on Count Dracula." Great,
Which is better.
which is better, yeah, of course.
I mean, no, I love the Murnau movie, of course, but like, yeah, it was always like, dude, he just couldn't say Dracula. Like Murnau
Dude,
totally would.
We know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're hip.
Yeah. Well, and he's got. I'm trying to remember some of the other names he changes in it, but like some of them are pretty close. Like whatever he changed Harker to is close, I think.
Yeah, and I think he's still Jonathan. I think he's Jonathan something.
It's just like Jonathan Harrier or something like that. I can't remember
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what. Where you're just going like, okay, yeah, sure. We see what you're doing there. Now I have to look it up because
Gonna drive you nuts.
no, it's Thomas Hutter.
Thomas Hutter. Okay,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Thomas Hutter, Ellen Hutter.
Helen, right?
Yeah. Professor Bulwer. Yeah, Professor Bulwer instead of Van Helsing. Interesting.
And I love when you read like the Kim Newman novels, like the Anna Dracula ones, how in his world all of this happened. So there was a Count Orlok, so that happened, and there's also Dracula. And in fact, Orlok is kind of a different cast of Dracula a vampire than Dracula is. There's all these houses, and they all hate each other.
Well,
I love that shit.
I mean, shit. One of those books is called Johnny Alucard. You know, like
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
that which we talked about when we did that movie. But it is just like, I mean, Kim Newman's a huge fucking nerd.
He is. He is. I would have long, embarrassing conversations with that
he's
guy.
on a lot of these shout. I told you he was on like a lot of the Hammer shout ones. There'll be like commentary by Kim Newman or a discussion about a movie with him or whatever. Like,
Hey, Kim Newman does a commentary on one of the Night Stalker episodes in the new Kino Lorber.
Yeah. Well,
box.
it seems like he is always available for special features.
Okay.
Which if I
Quick,
was
let's
him,
make a horror movie so he can do special features for it, and we'll get to
Look,
chat with him.
If I had his level of notoriety and fame there, I would use that same thing too. Or I'm like, get me on every retrospective documentary about anything. I'm happy to talk about it.
And then people would ask, "Do you have facial hair and hair that looks a lot like Wild Bill Hickok?" Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're gonna get you in there. He's an odd-looking dude, Kim Newman.
He definitely is.
He's embraced his inner eccentric.
Oh yeah. It totally fits when you see him. If you've read his stuff, you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's the guy who wrote Anno Dracula, no question.
He looks like a guy I've seen at many a convention, only with an accent.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see here. Then why even bother talking about Van Helsing in this movie almost? But he examines Lucy and he's like, I don't know, she seems okay to me. Which is about as good a doctoring as this guy does throughout this movie.
He's like, yeah, so she sleepwalks, no big deal. And the nightmares, I don't know what it is. Anyway, gotta go.
And this is Jonathan wakes up the next morning. He's like, I didn't have these bite marks last night. But then, of course, immediately out the window, he sees the coffin and all the boxes of dirt.
This is where he does the talking to us.
Yeah. And
they're going to leave me here. And he's going to my town.
Here's the thing I want to say as well: is it seems like the way we're going through this like plot by plot. It makes it sound like he is moving through this story at lightning pace, but there's a lot of air in these sequences and a lot of feeling and atmosphere and building of tension and stuff like that.
This movie, I think, spends more time on the Jonathan and Dracula in the castle sequence than any we've seen.
Yeah.
Like pretty much once Dracula shows up in the town, things really zoom along fast there. Because we spent most of our time of this movie just this, the eerie walking and being in this castle.
Yeah, this is the thing. The way we talk about stuff on the show is so plot point by plot point that's why I'm saying that now. Like, yeah, it seems like Dracula's already off to wherever he's going here this time. Not London.
Vismer.
Yeah. Because he loved the canals. That was a big Herzog thing he talks about in the documentary too. He's like, I love the look of the canals and the the whole thing with this town.
Yeah, and I'm like, Werner, did you think that actual cargo ships went down the canals? That's what I was sitting there watching it and going, this looks great, but I don't think.
Nope,
those are like streets, and you would not be having a cargo ship.
But my God, I love the shot of it of the big ship going down the canal. It looks great, as you're saying. Yeah,
especially when it's rudderless and just bumping up against its side. Like,
so good, man, so good. The other thing we have here from this point on is this chase where Harker's trying to beat Dracula back home, basically.
Yeah,
which is not
because Dracula did decide to go by ship. There is one little bit of screenwriting cleverness where he has Dracula say, "How long did it take you to get here by your?" And he goes, "It was like 4 weeks." He goes, "Yeah, that's too long. I'm probably gonna go by the river.
I'm gonna get me a boat.
I'm gonna get me a boat. I got a lot of boxes of dirt."
Yeah.
So that is his excuse to get on a ship. Mm-hmm. And so you do see them, quasi racing.
But unfortunately, what really costs Harker some time here is when he climbs out the window on the rope made out of sheets. He does fall and hit his head, and is discovered by my favorite character in the movie, Violin Boy.
Who this isn't the first time we saw him. We did see him
earlier.
Yeah, he was just playing poor violin in the courtyard of Castle Dracula for no reason.
Yep. And
here he shows up for no reason.
Yeah. Oh man, Violin Boy still acts to this day.
Oh, good for Violin Boy.
Let's see. Yeah, 62 credits, and he's the showrunner of some German TV show whose name I can't even pronounce. Beratocht Kust.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
It's a German soap opera because they've made 1,317 episodes of it.
Wow.
But he's an executive producer on it and was an executive producer from 1998 to 2018. 20 years as an executive producer on that. Attila C. Arpa.
And yet he was still mocked on set daily by people calling him Violin Boy.
Yeah. I've told you so many times that was in my past. Don't you understand? I'm now
you line producer. You call me that one more time and you're gone. Oh, whatever, Violin Boy. Oh, shit.
Oh, now it is on.
Now it is on. You've done it.
Yeah. It seems like he just appears in anything that he's in an episode of The Witcher. Anything that shoots in and around that area. He's in like American stuff, like Atomic Blonde, Red Sparrow.
Wow.
Yeah. Anything that's shooting in and around Germany, he's in it. It seems like. Yes.
Well, good for him.
Yes, I will help the Witcher fight his monsters, but I will not play violin. Only for Werner. I
see that it is in the script. Are you doing that to fuck with me? You know my history with the violin, right?
I just love the idea of Henry Cavill being like, "No way, are you the Violin Boy from Herzog?" Yes, Superman, I am.
I'm so sorry that you got saddled with a terrible director. You were a good Superman. Ubermensch.
Yeah, the Ubermensch. So yeah, I just said wakes up to find violin boy. Meanwhile, we have before the ship actually takes off to sea, we have the guy at the dock examining. He's like, "What's in all these boxes?" Says here it's a scientific dirt for scientific research or whatever.
Right,
Like,
and they open it up, and there's dirt in there, all right, but there's also rats.
and one guy, for unknown reasons, puts his foot in there.
Why wouldn't you?
And that foot is Werner Herzog's.
Whoa.
Yeah. And because one of the rats bites him then. He's like, "Oh!"
Right.
I just thought, why was that the thing where he's like, better check out this dirt. Let me get my foot in there. Yeah, it's dirt, all right.
But also like him sitting going, this is sort of my Hitchcock moment.
Yeah, that's just my foot. Also, some of the footage when he's shooting, he's just wearing a big black cloak, Herzog, like just around on set. And yeah, I thought like, oh, because I'm going like, I don't think he's in it. I don't know where. No, he was just wearing that on set.
Cosplay.
Yeah. I should dress like Dracula to understand him. Anyway, Kinski and I really did
why
try
are you
blood.
in the golden tiara and the Star Spangled Undies? I'm thinking of adapting Wonder Woman next.
Oh, Werner Herzog's Wonder Woman would be amazing.
Mine is more about despair than hope.
That's so. He did have a sick zinger though, which I don't necessarily think of Herzog. But in an interview about this, he stated that the rats that appear in the film behaved better than Klaus on set.
Yeah. I think that's more of the we got to keep this. He didn't realize the sort of press value in playing up the very torturous relationship between him and his lead actor.
Yeah.
So he leaned into it quite a bit.
It's always something I feel about Herzog where I'm like, this is a little bit of an act, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Because the second he shows up on that Parks and Rec episode, I'm like, oh,
God damn.
You do get that there's something funny about you.
Yeah.
That was I'm selling my house so I can live closer to Disneyland. Like that. Okay, it's like, oh, you have a sense of humor that doesn't come out, but he knows what he is. Yeah.
Oh, that was such one of the dream castings of all time.
Yeah, that was so.
Werner Herzog on Parks and Rec.
So funny. They were buying his creepy house.
And they start making out on the table, and he's just watching them from a nook. He's like peeking out of a closet, just watching them make out.
Exactly, that's sort of thing where it's like, what the deal is.
Yep.
I love him talking about the most horrific thing he's seen is Keeping Up with the Kardashians. He said, I watched this American reality show. It was horrifying.
I wish he had done a beat for beat recreation of this thing from Grizzly Man.
Yeah.
Where on a monitor in front of him is Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and he has the headphones on. He goes, "I cannot allow anyone to hear this. This is horrifying. This is inhuman.
Oh, this is terrible.
This is terrible."
Why does the one with the rather large hindquarters shriek so badly?
Rather large hindquarters is my new favorite. You take on Werner Herzog talking about Kim Kardashian's ass.
Well,
this is great.
I was thinking, I'm like, he's not a guy who would say she's got a big ass.
No, he wouldn't.
It's a rather large hindquarters.
This one with the great shanks.
And then they're just like, I don't know. Let it through though. Let the boxes through. Whatever.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Jonathan is quite ill, but he's being taken care of by the Romani. But he's like, you gotta stop the coffins. That's what's important. You gotta stop those boxes from getting to
all of this, I mean, this is again sticking fairly close to the novel, and I'm sitting there going, well, okay, of course, Jonathan is weakened and he's sort of quasi crazy at this point. He knows what's up, but he gets better.
Mm-hmm.
He does not in this. He just gets worse and worse.
Because that is what would happen if
vampirism is a sickness.
Yeah.
It is a plague.
You don't recover from a plague. Werner Herzog. Every film comes from pain. Remember that, folks.
Very true.
Meanwhile, Van Helsing is summoned. At some point, off screen, Renfield has gotten himself committed.
Yeah.
And the orderly comes up to Van Helsing, who is now our Seward, who is Van Helsing, seems to be running the mental hospital. And they're like, they go, there's a problem with one of the patients. And he goes, which one? That one who bit that cow? And Van Helsing's like, oh boy.
Here we go.
And he's holding this big box of flies. It's like a screened in fly trap, basically.
I thought it was like a bird cage.
Yeah, I mean,
because
it's something like that. But I mean, it's got the wire, screen door kind of material on it that all the flies are in.
Right, but I think that he's doing he puts the spiders in with the flies, and then the birds eat the spiders. He's creating his own little.
But he's holding it going, and he's going.
Yeah, and he's tapping on it, like, ooh, yes, ooh.
Yeah, and this guy. I know it's not his voice, but once again, I just wanted to be. Yeah, that's right. He says he's refusing to take his meals. And he wants to eat the flies. He's crazy.
Thank you, Martin. Please go away now. You are no use to me.
Somehow,
you also speak so strangely.
no matter what the movie is or where it came from, Martin is that orderly.
Martin's in every Dracula ripoff movie.
He'll end up in the Coppola. I'm sure when we get to the Langella one in a couple weeks, he'll be in that too.
I'm 125 years old.
No, you know what?
Crazy.
That actor, he's like the Winter Soldier. They keep him frozen until it's time to make another Dracula. Then they thaw Martin out, and he's like, "All right, what are my lines?"
They have to wake him up with certain keywords. Yeah. Todd Browning. Rubber bat.
Yeah. And then when he finally clicks, he's like, cries.
Yeah. Welcome back to the world, Winter Martin.
What year is it?
What year is it? Who are you?
Who's making Dracula now?
Did we beat Hitler?
Oh, good. I didn't like that guy. He seemed crazy. It's, again, I've said it before. I don't know if the audience enjoys Martin as much as we do, but you're going to get him no matter what.
No one could. And I'm still working on that T-shirt design.
Oh,
it's going to be great.
Yeah. But anyway, he's refusing to eat food. He wants to eat the flies.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just establishing, but he's going like, my master is coming. He'll be here soon. Great. I love all this. I love the build up to Dracula coming in this, which is
of course
great. That's all good stuff, man.
There's only one thing I missed that I found was disappointing was, I mean, it really is just a boat ride over, and even the captain lashing himself to the mast was done sort of like broad daylight, clear water. I'm like, where's the storm, man? Because Dracula's entrance has to be all Sturm und Drang, and this doesn't have that.
When we cut back from this, we cut back to not unnamed ship, but we'll call it the Demeter for,
Let's call it that, because it feels good.
We just have the captain writing in his log, which of course, because of who I am, I do like this, like captain's log.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Captain's log. There's a vampire on the ship.
Captain's log. I believe it's a Mugatu.
Yeah. Oh, no. Man.
A Mugatu loose on the Demeter.
Yeah. damn it! Why didn't we ever have Captain Kirk versus Dracula? I would have loved that.
Oh, you never read my fan fiction. That's right.
I mean, space vampires. They didn't really ever do that.
No, not unless you watched Buck Rogers, a very good space vampire episode.
Oh,
and
yeah.
by very good, I mean terrible and cheesy 1970s. But he also looked like Nosferatu. They did the.
You're right. Well, I was gonna say
big, tall, bald forehead.
By the way, I was gonna say though, who are you talking to? Of course, I've seen every episode of that Buck Rogers show. Here's the question here: do I have the Kino Lorber Blu-ray set of that show? Of course.
Do you really?
I really do.
Wow, that's a lot of Lycra and spandex, my friend.
Signed by Gildred. No, not yet. Not yet. I someday I want to go to a convention because he does a lot of conventions. So
I'm sorry. For me, it's all about Aaron Gray.
Well, that too. I want as many of the because
Commander Wilma Deering.
Yeah, I also loved her on Silver Spoons.
I can't follow you there. Even though I loved her, I could not watch that show. Rick Schroeder, he always pissed me off.
But he was more of an adult than the father. Who's raising
Oh, now you've explained it.
Little kid me loves Silver Spoons because of that, where I'm like, the father acts like a kid and the kid acts like the father.
It was a Richie Rich show where he had his own little train that ran through the house. Come on.
Little 6-year-old me thought that was, whoa, what a program.
It's like they pulled it right out of my skull.
So he's writing about like, I don't know, crew members keep dying or disappearing. It's getting real weird on this boat, you guys.
Yeah. That doesn't seem right.
Then Lucy goes and questions Renfield and is like, hey, why did you send him there? Do you know something? He's like, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. And so he's like, my man, and he keeps going like, master is coming. Yeah, it's a great giggle. It's not nearly as blood chilling as Dwight Fry, of course.
No. Yeah, this one is this one isn't unsettling. It's just constant, as if it's this uncontrollable tick.
Which I do like. It plays into the just unsettling craziness of Renfield.
Yep.
Because then he also looks at the paper and he sees this thing about like, oh, plagues have been reported.
Yeah,
and he's like,
I know who's behind that.
Then we cut to the ship captain is now tying himself to the wheel. But once again, there's no one else. We never see anyone else on the boat. The Demeter stuff doesn't really work. Because,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. This sequence.
It's more just like, we got to do this.
There is drama in pretty much every other take of the arrival of Dracula, and this is pretty. Except for as we said, when it just starts drifting down the canal and bumping up against the sides.
I would say, good. And look, I'm no one to question Werner Herzog here, but if I had any notes for the man, I would say cut all this stuff and just have the boat show up and the guy be lashed to it, and then you're like, I don't know what happened out there, man, but it was bad.
There you go.
More like what the 31 movie does, actually, where they just find the boat.
The 31 movie does recycle some silent movie footage of
that's right.
Ship at sea.
They do some of that, but I do just sort of like the idea of like just make it the creepiness of the boat shows up, the guy's tied to the wheel, everybody else is gone, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, but you'll never match opening the hold to have Dwight Fry looking up at you going,
I mean, look, the whole message of this show is you'll never get better than Dwight Fry. Everything we watch pales in comparison to that man.
Oh, my
God.
Who
never got his due, damn it.
No.
Oh, I love that guy. He's tied. So we see him tie himself. And then I do like this shot when he looks up and sees Dracula just sort of like creeping in and staring at him.
Yeah, that's good.
And he doesn't do anything, and then once again, it's all in the stillness of it. And then we cut to the boat going into the canal, which we've talked about. And they're like everybody's looking at the boat, going like, "What the hell happened here?"
Yeah, it was
pretty weird.
No one has anything better to do. They're all just sort of lined up, going, "Well, that's peculiar. There's a boat right there, and
yeah,
sure seemed to be a lot of rats coming out of it.
A lot of rats." And they're like, "That guy tied himself to the wheel. That's weird."
Huh? That is weird.
Yeah. They bring Van Helsing in to examine the captain's body, and he's like, 2 puncture marks on the neck, eh? Don't know what that's about.
I know.
And
You don't deserve the name Van Helsing.
Well, because they're like, well, have somebody look at his log and see what the hell they were talking about. Because, like, where's everybody else? Nothing really comes of that, but, you know.
Once they mention the rats, and it's also in the captain's thing, that's when the first sense of, could be the plague. We're not saying it is. Could be the plague, though.
Might just be. And they're all from Maine now, apparently. Might just be the plague. That's what I hear.
They say it came from Werner, and everyone knows there was an awful plague in Werner.
Quite terrible. Hope these rats aren't a problem. Meanwhile,
oh, no.
We cut to a very interesting thing, which is, once again, never named. It's just the property down the street, but of course we know it as Carfax Abbey.
That's what we know it as.
But Dracula himself is loading these big boxes of dirt into the castle.
Well, that's from original Nosferatu. I do love that from the original silent film. You have Count Orlok just basically going, fine, I'll do it myself. Yeah. And he's literally lifting his own crates, his own coffins, and walking them into the
Klaus
abbey.
Kinski Dracula is so decrepit, and like it's just funny to see this guy being like,
I got it. I got it.
Oh, no. No. Don't help me, all right? I don't need any help.
Where's that Renfield guy? He was supposed to be here.
Oh, Renfield. I noticed you showed up after everything's been loaded in.
You don't get any of the beer and pizza I offered my friends to help.
So then Jonathan arrives home, and Lucy's so excited to see him, and he's like, excuse me, do I know you, lady?
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
She's so happy he's back, and he's like, I don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah, not...
and he goes, you're hideous.
Yeah.
And then everyone knows he's a liar because she's beautiful.
Of course. We see, like, Van Helsing and everybody, and they're all examining Jonathan, like, what's his problem? And we just see out the window that Dracula's watching all this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like,
that's a pretty great scene. It's
good. Yes.
It's a little... It reminded me a little bit of, like, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah.
Because on the inside of it is brightly colored due to the fireplace, and so it looks warm.
Yeah.
And even though people are concerned, it's people talking and interacting, and you have this lonely, bald-headed, rat-like dude who is totally cast in blue light, leaning up against the glass, going, "Oh, they look so happy in there. Oh, not for me though, not for me."
Yeah. I like sad puppy Dracula going, if only I could have a family. It's all I wanted.
I hear laughter.
Yeah.
It's the first laughter I've heard in years.
Yeah. I can't hear the laughter anymore.
I'll just be out here. Yeah. Don't worry about me.
He's just whimpering outside.
Someone grab a blanket and put it over the vampire that's outside. Come on.
So Lucy, meanwhile, is doing her hair in the mirror, and I do really like the way the door just opens behind her, and it's
the way this scene is shot. Talk about
no reflection in the mirror.
Yeah, no reflection. The door opens,
but the shadow of Dracula is there. Oh,
and then he emerges out of the shadow. Yeah. It is so well done.
So well done, and so subtle but effective. Oh. It's just simple, but great filmmaking right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where he's like, hello. And she's just like, yeah.
I couldn't help but notice your hotness.
Yeah. So, this is where you live.
Tell me more about this film you're going to do called Ishtar.
Yeah. Ooh.
Sounds like it will be a big hit.
Yeah. Hoffman? Beatty? You can't go wrong with those two.
You should clear off room on your mantelpiece for your Oscar.
But she's just not fucking having this guy. I mean, he goes on and on here, and he is trying to play the pity card here, going like, "Love, it is the one thing I can't feel," or what, it's like.
Yeah, and he's like going, the bond between you and Jonathan is very strong. She's like, yeah. and nothing can break it.
Yeah.
And what's more,
He's
get
like-
the fuck out.
He's like, well, I was very much hoping to break it.
Get
but,
the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, then she does. She pulls back her hair and she shows the cross around, and he's like, okay, all right.
He's like, all right, no need to get nasty.
Yeah. All you had to do was tell me to leave. It was too much.
He is weirdly hesitant and not sweet, but when he comes in for all the creepiness, he does approach her kind of going, look, can we just talk for a second? I mean, it's very unlike what you're used to.
I was just trying to have a conversation, all right?
Yeah. Look. I saw your picture in his little locket, and I thought you were very cute.
Yeah. She's a hottie with a body, I'm just saying.
She must be jelly, because jelly don't shake like that. What?
Even Renfield's like, I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Master, you didn't see her move till you showed up, so that doesn't make any
One can
any
assume
sense.
from seeing her proportions, Renfield.
Come on. You're telling me she ain't got the badonkadonk?
It's way ahead of its time with the dialogue.
Very much so.
Badonkadonk. I didn't know this thing coined that. Meanwhile, Renfield escapes from the mental institution by just convincing this guard to come in and then running out and closing the door behind him.
Yeah.
He's
just
like,
locks the guard in his own room. He's like,
gotcha.
I'm gone.
Yeah, Renfield. Now Lucy's reading from the book about vampires, so we need a lot more like, sunlight kills them, and
well, specifically, the thing is you have to distract the vampire so they forget what time it is, so they stay out till the cock crows.
Specifically a woman, so they ignore the crowing of the cock, right? Isn't that the thing about it?
Yeah, that's the thing, is you have to basically distract him for hours and hours, so he just loses track of time.
Yeah.
He's like, what? Oh, shit.
Which works, but
is kind of how it happens in the movie.
Which works, but like when we say it like that, it sounds very funny, where he's like, oh no, I've lost track of time again.
Well, the death scene is kind of odd. I had so many questions about it.
Weird,
it's still dreamy, but you're like...
And also, if there's one... I mean, the one thing that is true about all these Draculas, they got a weakness for the ladies, man. That really is always kind of the undoing.
Yeah.
It's just like... Because it just
basically
love the
Bram
ladies.
Stoker's thesis is that, bitches are going to do you in every time. Is what he said, was what his book was about.
Oh, bitches be crazy.
Bitches be crazy is what Bram Stoker...
Something I actually believe Kinski probably did say.
Oh my God.
I
don't know why they don't let me just rape them all the time.
Look, we both want it, right? Read my book.
Have you seen yourself, Klaus? Have you seen yourself?
Hey, read my book. It's all in there.
It's all 100% true.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I want it to be true or don't want it to be true, because either way, that dude is messed up.
Messed up.
Yeah. So she's reading about the vampires, and Jonathan is laughing in the background as she's reading about vampires. He's like, yeah, vampires.
I like the way, from pretty much jump, when he comes back, they basically just seat Jonathan in a chair in the corner.
Yeah. They're like,
and as he's degrading and going more vampiric and whatever, it's like, well, just stay in your little chair.
I do like the idea. We don't quite know what's wrong with this guy, so we'll just keep him over here. And I don't know. We'll see if we can figure it out. But my actual favorite scene in the movie is this one, which is Renfield finally meets up with Dracula, like out in a field.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, master. And he goes to hug him, and Dracula's like, what the fuck? Like, I don't need that shit from you.
He does just sort of put a hand up like,
Yeah, no, come on. Which I love, because we've talked about how much I love that in the Christopher Lee movies. Just the idea about like, I don't need you fawning all over me. All right, just do my bidding.
Calling me master is good, but give me my space.
Do my bidding, but like, don't touch me.
We're not friends. You get that, right?
Yeah,
we're not friends.
You work for me, okay? It's not we don't hang out.
Put on your name tag and your hairnet and get out there and do what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
and clock out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to need you to write down what you're doing every 15 minutes.
That's an inside joke. But so anyway, he's like, you know what, it'd be great for you, Renfield. How about you go see if the rats are doing what they're supposed to be doing?
He
go
literally
check on the rats.
I'm gonna need you to go check on those rats. Okay, great.
And we never see Renfield again.
We don't.
Did the rats get him? Is that or does it matter?
I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, it's a thing though where I did think like, oh, there is no. Usually we have a Renfield demise of some sort in all these, but here he just kind of runs off and we never see him again.
I mean, could there have been a cutscene? Possibly.
Maybe. I couldn't bring myself to kill off a man with that infectious a laugh. In fact,
I hired him to come to all of my parties. I have only had one party.
Herzog doesn't laugh. He has that guy laugh for him.
Werner Herzog
very amusing.
threw one party in his life.
Yeah, it was awful.
And yet beautiful in its own damned way.
People said it wasn't enjoyable because he kept narrating all the events of the party.
Now laugh. I have told a joke.
Yeah.
Laugh now.
It was a humorous anecdote. Yeah, I wonder what he would be like just to hang out with. Like,
certainly not like that.
No, he wouldn't be like that. I don't know. That's the thing. I can't. Like I said, it's definitely a little bit of an act he puts on, but what I can't tell is how much of an act.
Well, all I can say is there is a dyed-in-the-wool German folk fella who's been on this season of Great British Baking Show and was just voted off before the finals. And he seems delightful, but maybe there is a German thing where it is, and I'm not trying to characterize entire people, but he seems a really nice guy, but the sense of humor is because you have these comedians like Noel Fielding walking around and making jokes while they're baking. He's like, that is very good.
Yeah.
In the show, he's just like, I understand that was a joke. Yeah. And you're just like, wow, maybe that's a German thing.
Very comedically humorous.
I think that you are clever.
Yeah.
I do need to make this cake now. Thank you.
That is enough. We've taken our time for the jokes.
I do not want my caramel to burn.
The only guy who really upsets that vision of Germany is one of my favorites, Flula Borg.
Oh, well, sure.
That guy's fucking hilarious. But he almost seems like he's the outsider. He's like, I had to come to America to make more jokes.
Thank you for welcoming me and laughing.
Finally, my people.
It feels so good to be home.
No one laughs in Dusseldorf.
No one laughs in Dusseldorf. That should be the name of your novel.
No one laughs. I just like the name Dusseldorf.
It is automatically funny to us English speakers.
I was born in Dusseldorf, and that is why my name is Rolf. It's from the producers.
I know it is.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that was more for the audience than for you, but
okay.
Yeah.
I was born in Dusseldorf, and that is why they call me Rolf. Come on, stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party.
Yep. This is the best. So let's see. Where were we here? Oh yeah, he tells him to go run the army of rats. Then we get this people marching down the street with these coffins of plague victims, and Lucy runs into them, and they're like, "What are you doing? Get away! The plague, the victims, the plague."
It's getting so very dreamlike at this point because it is like this mass parade of coffins. And she comes out and she's basically saying, will you listen to me? I know the cause of this.
Yeah.
I know what is behind it. And they're like saying, it's just the plague.
Yeah.
You know, you can't tell us anything we don't already know. Yeah. We're all going to die.
Yeah. Hey, man, plagues happen. All right.
And she goes, you should tell the police. And they're like, well, the police are all dead.
Yeah.
I do love that every time someone says, tell the mayor, and they're like, the mayor's dead. Do this. Well, they're dead now,
the whole thing at the end of the movie is absurd. Like, it's almost comical. It's weird. So then she runs to Van Helsing, and in the least accurate Van Helsing I've ever seen. She tells him all the stuff about the vampires. He's like, nah, that sounds nuts.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I understand you're distraught.
I mean, I will say it is the only thing in the movie that kind of upset me when I was like, all right, no, wrong. Don't make it Van Helsing then.
It subverts the character of Van Helsing. He doesn't even get like a last-minute reprieve. Even once he believes, which is very late.
Very late.
He's ineffective about anything. Yes, he stakes.
But he's already dead. It's just sort of a confirmation staking.
Yeah, a confirmation staking.
Yeah,
let's
make sure
getting hauled off and getting arrested for murder.
Well, does he get arrested? I mean, he gets arrested, but he also, once again, that's sort of the point of that is he kind of can't be arrested because there's really no one to arrest or try him.
Yeah, there's some important guy who breaks in, and I love Jonathan, who's now totally Team Dracula at this point, going, arrest that guy. He just killed Count Dracula upstairs, and they verify it, and he's like, well, I did it because he's the source of the sickness. He's a vampire. And
Van Helsing's like, right. Look at him.
Look at the
guy.
They're like, well, you should be arrested anyway. And it's like, well, there's no sheriff. There's no police left. And he goes, well, you old man, why don't you arrest him? I've never arrested anybody before. And it does become the sort of like dark comedy of the plague has destroyed not just lives, but all of society. There's no more any glue holding it together.
It is the comedy of horror and tragedy.
This is not far from true life.
Man, Herzog, I don't know what happened to you, but good Lord. So she then goes into Carfax herself and starts consecrating all the dirt in the boxes.
Yeah, she's doing the job. My
favorite thing, the crackers are back. Here,
I know.
Here they're not used as silly as in that Count Dracula, though. Nobody's waving them in anyone's face or anything, you know. Here,
you are so anti the host.
I'm all right with it when it's just she's breaking them up and putting them in the dirt. I'm going, okay, yeah, but it's not.
Didn't you like her making the sacred?
Yeah, that's fine.
Circle to keep Jonathan on.
That's
at
fine
bay?
Because it's so much better shot than that scene with the brides and the circle of wafer.
Yeah,
that was very dumb in that BBC.
Yeah, I know.
Here it's I think it's totally fine. I'm not against crackers in general.
They're tasty.
I love them. I love a cracker. Then she goes outside, and this is where they're having this. This is where before they were carrying the coffins. Now they're like having the celebration, going like, "We're all gonna die."
Yeah, this is where you have dead horses in the street and strewn bodies and smoke. And I mean, I read Daniel Defoe's A Journal of the Plague Year a long time ago. And it is sort of like the thing is you've gone past despair into we've accepted it. We're all going to die. So we're going to have a last supper. They literally go, this is probably our last supper. So we're going to have the best time we possibly can. And they're like, come sit down. The tables are out in the middle of the plague strewn streets. And Lucy's trying to get shit done, but these people are going, what's the point? We're all dead anyway. Come and join us for a plague dinner.
Yeah. And then it does this thing where it cuts from the people at the table to rats having just overtaken the table completely.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I like it. So let's see here. Then... I don't quite know what the point of killing off random Mina is when they're like, oh my god, the victim of a vampire.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It just kind of feels like, okay.
They're like, oh, we don't think she was actually killed by the plague, and look at the marks on her throat. We're like, great, we've had nothing invested in her. Sorry that she got bitten.
Yeah.
We just have no idea what this is about. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of odd. And also Mina wasn't really a character either. So
no, that's the thing. We have not bonded with her at all.
But this seems to be the thing that finally is like Mina's like, I must stop him.
She was already at work doing it, but now it's personal.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. So Jonathan's rambling like a madman, and it just sort of like her making the circle with the wafers, and then just sort of being like, oh, Jonathan, like I'm going to do what I can to protect you, but
in her mind that once she does her job and destroys Dracula, I think in her mind she believes that breaks everything, that he'll go back to being normal.
To be fair, in a lot of the other movies is the case. Actually, in almost everything that's the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she goes to her bed and basically lets Dracula come and bite her and drink from her so that she can distract him through the night.
Yeah, this is like the Silent as well, because she essentially sacrifices herself. She knows that the only way to do it is to keep him occupied, so he, like we said, forgets all about what time it is, and then the rays of the sun are going to destroy him. So she knows she's going to die, but she's basically, I just have to keep him satisfied, if you know what I mean, until the dawn. And that's what she does. She gives herself up.
And I will say, I am a little uncomfortable with this, knowing stuff about Klaus Kinski, the way he is caressing her thigh, and the way his hand just lands on one of her breasts and stays there like the whole scene. Is one of those who's like, Klaus, I didn't tell you to do that.
I think that this is effectively done, obviously. But the thing that I kept thinking, all right, so she's letting him drink from her, but I don't know what time she's laying down, and I'm like, that can't be 8 hours.
No,
whatever, right? How long is she going to stay alive? And it becomes apparent that somehow, because we see her move her arm when you think that she's already dead and passed. She'll move her arm to kind of like keep him there, like, no, there's more. Go ahead, squeeze my tit, whatever. And he keeps on, and I'm like, hours?
And Klaus Kinski says, don't mind if I do.
Don't mind if I do. I'm sold. So I think we need another take,
Werner. I think we need another take of this.
We want to do this in real time, so it is going. We're just leaving the camera rolling, and you just mac on her for about the next 6 to 7 hours.
This was actually just on-set footage that was not planned, of course. This is Klaus between takes. No, because she's not resisting, and she's not his daughter, so it can't be a real thing.
And then, so it's effective. It's her last heroic act, and I always found that in the silent version to also be, that's very moving in a way. It's like, I will sacrifice myself, and implied I'm sacrificing my virginity, my innocence.
Yeah, but in the Werner Herzog version, that doesn't save anybody. Of course.
No, I know, that's what makes it so dark.
But then it doesn't matter.
Gave herself up.
It doesn't even matter.
And it does work though, because it is sort of like the sun breaks through, and he's like, and the cock crows. He's like, "Oh shit, are you kidding me?"
Yeah, and then he just weirdly dies.
I know, and that's why I was expecting the whole rear back sunlight thing. Nope, we didn't get that.
Me too. It's a bummer, because that is such an iconic death in the original movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, then they try, as we kind of already went through that scene, that they try to arrest Van Helsing.
Well, because Van Helsing comes onto the scene, and he now knows that everything that Lucy was saying was right, and he gets there too late. She's dead, and he's like, well, I'm going to have to stake this motherfucker. Yeah. And so he does stake Dracula, though kind of obscured. We don't see it.
It's totally off screen. We're with Jonathan, actually, and we just hear it.
Right. And then the authority figure types break in, and they're like, what's going on here? And Jonathan is full on.
Yeah.
He's like, the guy up there, Dr. Van Helsing, he totally killed Count Dracula. And Van Helsing comes down with a bloody stake. He's like, uh-oh.
Yeah. And they're like, did you just stake someone through the heart? He's like, maybe. But and he goes,
the whole thing about how are we going to arrest this guy?
Like, well, we don't have any police. And then they're like, well, take him to the jail. It's like, no one can guard him.
And then Jonathan, who's clearly vampired out because now he has the rat teeth himself.
And he's got the fingers, too.
Yeah, he basically says, hey, maid, housekeeper, this place is a mess. Could you brush up this stuff?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and he has her sweep up the host, the crumbled
way
host.
Bruno Ganz plays that moment when he can finally step out. He's like, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Out of that circle, nice. And then he rips the cross that's around his neck off and throws it down. and then we cut to him riding out through the desert.
Yeah, with the black cloak on.
Yeah, in search of
Because
whatever
he's now
evil. Yeah,
Dracula. He's now the main vampire dude.
And that's the end of the movie because Werner.
What a
Herzog's
downer!
Like, just remember, life is shit.
If you had hope at any point during this film, then I have failed.
Yeah. Just remember, nothing you do matters.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he walks out. He walks out in front of like curtains, just like Everett Van Horton. I mean Everett Horton at the end of Everett Horton.
Edward Van Sloan?
Yes, Everett Van Sloan. Man, my brain is mixing classic actors up. But yeah, I love the idea of him coming out and addressing the audience, the viewing audience. Is like, and there you have our little play.
Yeah.
Everything is shit. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Hug your babies tight. Good night.
And that's Nosferatu, the Vampyre.
The Vampyre.
Yeah. It's great.
Terrible movie. Terrible movie. Can't believe we had to watch it.
It's great, and it's even better in conjunction with a lot of after what we've been through a lot of these other movies. It is so fucking
we
good.
hit a bad patch, and so this was like, oh, thank God. It is not, as we often have said, it's not going to be your ticket to a horror fest. It is an atmospheric, dreamlike, nightmarish, eerie film, and it's great.
Yeah. It is great. I mean, it's what happens when you get in the hands of a genius filmmaker.
Yep. Speaking of genius filmmakers, what are we watching next week?
Well, as we
haven't already spoiled it.
As we mentioned earlier, we are watching for our next 2 episodes will be Salem's Lot from 1979.
The TV miniseries of the Stephen King novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was joking about genius filmmakers. I don't even know who made it, but they did it very competently. I do know who made it. Toby Hooper.
Yeah, great.
I'm sorry.
I was like, what are you talking about? It is a great.
That is a great filmmaker. So I'll shut my mouth. I will say that he did a fine enough job to where it is indelibly marked on my brain since childhood. I remember scenes and dialogue from this miniseries.
It is great. It is different than the book in a lot of very key ways, but it is great unto itself. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to this. Once again, it's been a little while since I've watched it, and so I'm excited to watch it again. We get James Mason back.
Most importantly, though, we get television's David Soul.
Yeah, I love David Soul. We've talked about my love of Starsky and Hutch, but it is like David Soul is exactly your TV leading man for the TV version of this.
He delivers enough of seriousness. We also get young Bonnie Bedelia.
Love Bonnie Bedelia, man. Holly McClane.
Mm-hmm. And it's the first of 2 Stephen King adaptations she did.
Mm-hmm. We also get, in what I believe is his only Stephen King adaptation, Fred Willard. Fred
Willard's great in it.
Yes.
And actually perfectly cast for that part. Mm-hmm. It is very much a him part.
Yeah. It's great. It's this. We're gonna finish up strong here on this season of the show, so that's nice because we've been through it.
We've been through it.
Yeah.
We've got 3 episodes left of this season.
Yeah.
And then, man, we dive right into the 80s.
Oh, do we ever, man? And we kick things off rough.
What is the first one? I'm curious.
It's Humanoids from the Deep.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, that's where.
I'm so happy that because it
is
1980.
That's where we start.
I will just say that Gillmen in general are going to be even perhaps more than the Phantom.
Yeah,
the creature that we're going to be seeing the least.
Well, we had none this season. There were no Gillmen in the 70s. So
there were things I thought that we could maybe include, and then I was like, no.
There's a lot of stuff like that. We always say that this is not exhaustive, or else we'd be at this forever. No.
I mean, we are doing films that aren't Dracula but are vampire films. Right. We thought we should tackle. And we've, Phantom of the Paradise isn't really Phantom of the Opera, but I mean, we're going to kind of dip into things, and there's no established I am the werewolf, so we're pretty much doing werewolves as they come.
Well, because next season, get ready for
Plenty of werewolves.
so many werewolves, and a lot of them in movies called The Hunger. So,
You mean the Howling?
I'm sorry, The Howling. We are doing
Oh,
The
by
Hunger.
the way,
though.
is The Hunger is on the list?
Yes, we are doing The Hunger.
Awesome. David Bowie, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and a Tony Scott film.
Yep.
But
R.I.P.
yeah. Yeah, join us next week for part 1 of Salem's Lot. But that is going to wrap up this episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
Or, as I like to refer to them, your neighbors.